Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So, shall we begin the session? Today's topic is chapter number 10, that is the hardware and the software selection. How we can select the hardware and the software, which hardware is required for the system development, and which software is required for making the, yes, for the system development itself. All right. So, shall we begin with the chapter? So, these are the few topics. These are the topics of chapter number 10. So first one is objectives. Then there is an introduction about the hardware and the software selection. Then what is the hardware selection? Determining the size and the capacity requirement. What is the size? What is the capacity of the organization? And what are the hardware that is required for that organization? What are the requirement for the capacity requirements? Then computer evaluation and the measurement. This includes the benchmarking, design of the synthetic programs, comparison of the benchmarks, why one benchmark is compared with another benchmark, then plug compatible equipment, what are the various equipment that is used, that means what are the various hardware equipment that is used for the selection. Then financial factors, that includes the rental, that includes the lease, that includes the purchase. Then maintenance and the support, that includes the service and the response, option to an in-house system, vendor selection. So this is till the hardware selection. After this, there is a software selection, that is which software will be used for making the system. Either we use the C, C++, Java, PHP, .NET, which programming language will be used, that is also covered under the software selection. Then criteria, what is the criteria? So it depends on the requirement to requirement. So we have to see the requirements, which is the criteria for the software selection. Then performance evaluation. After making the hardware and the software selection, there will be a performance evaluation. Evaluate the performance, whether we are whatever the tool we are using, whatever the software, whatever the hardware we are using, whether that software provides a perfect performance. That is the evaluation of the performance. After that, there is a summary and questions. So let's talk about the objective. What is the main objective of this chapter? That is hardware and software selection. So first one objective is what kind of software and the peripherals are required. Now my question is, what are the peripherals? Yes, it is a combination of collection of the input or the hardware and the output software devices. That means it is a combination of the input and the output devices, that is known as the peripherals. So what kind of peripherals, what kind of input devices, what kind of output devices, what kind of hardware is required or are required? Then how the hardware is selected, what are the various criteria by which we can select the hardware? Yeah, this hardware is better, this hardware is good. So what are the various criteria by which the hardware is selected? Then how the computer evaluation and the measurement will be conducted. How the computer evaluation means, what are the various computer parts that is evaluated and measured that will be conducted. Then what is a benchmarking? What are the various factors that is responsible for the benchmarking? So what are the various financial factors that is required for the benchmarking? How the maintenance and the support will be provided to the system? How we can provide the maintenance, or how the maintenance will be required, or why maintenance is very much required for the system, or how it provides the support to the system. Then how the vendor selection is done. What is the criteria, why this selection is done, how it is useful, that is how the vendor selection is done. What are the different criteria for the software selection? So what are the different ways by which we can select the software? What are the various criteria by which we can select the software? Depends on the requirements of the user. It's the responsibility of the system analyst. Then how the system performance evaluation be done? That means what is the criteria for making the evaluation? How we can evaluate the system? How we can evaluate the performance of the system? That is how the system evaluation performance or the performance evaluation will be done. So let's start with the introduction of this hardware and the software selection. So a major element or the main element in building the system is selecting the compatible hardware and the software. That means we have to select the compatible. That means a perfect or that is compatible with the hardware and the software. So we have to select the compatible hardware and the software. The kind of hardware and the peripherals required is to be determined. That means what are the various hardware and the peripherals, what are the hardware devices, what are the various peripherals that is required, that is to be determined, and a suitable software has also be selected. So suitable software means what kind of software is required, that is a suitable software that is also selected. The experienced analyst will explore various options regarding it. So the experienced analyst, that means analyst who have experience, will explore various options regarding it. What are the various options to explore? What are the various options to handle with the hardware and the software concepts? Then hardware and the software selection begins with the requirement analysis. So first step for the first criteria for the hardware and the software selection, that begins with the requirement analysis, that is followed by a request for the proposal and the vendor evaluation. So that is followed for the request that is given for the proposal and for the vendor evaluation, for evaluating the proposal and the vendor material. And the final system selection initiates contract negotiation. So whenever we talk about the final negotiation, final system selection, that also includes the contact information, price, maintenance agreement, vendor selection, acceptance criteria, and the similar issues. Yes. This final system is the main system that is developed after fulfilling all the details. That is the issue that initiates the contract negotiations, price, maintenance agreements, vendor selection, acceptance criteria, and the similar issues regarding this building or that is used in building the system. Next one is a hardware selection. So gone are the days when a user known as the IBM 360 system, when it is in itself including the system, hardware, software, and the support. Now, in day-to-day scenario, selecting a system is a serious and a time-conquering activity. So we have to give the time. We have to focus on the activity that is performed. That is at the hardware and the software selections. Today, selecting a system is a serious and a time-consuming activity. Unfortunately, many systems are selected or self-selected based on the vendor reputation only or other subjective factors. So, what are the various factors by which we can provide the vendor reputation only with the subjective factors, and instead the factors which are to be considered that should be determining the equipment size, capacity, need, financial consideration, and the acquisition method. That means what are the various what is the size of the equipment, what are the various capacities, that is the needs, how the needs are fulfilled, financial considerations, and the acquisition method. The- yeah, these are the factors that determines the hardware selection. What is the size of the equipment? What is the capacity? What are the various financial? That means how much money is we have to spend on the system. What are the various acquisition methods? How we acquire the system, how we use the system, or what are the various parts that is available in the organization right now. That is the hardware selection. Let's move to the next topic, that is determining the size and the capacity requirement. What is the size that is required for the software selection, that is required for the system, and what are the various capacity requirement. So with the computer that is ranging in the size, or that range in the size from small microcomputers to the large mainframe computer, there are n number of options that is available to choose from when selecting a system. So we have to choose the options when we select a system that is obviously very large, and even within the lines of a single manufacturers, there are many different models and the configurations that is setting out or that is set out from which to left. That means which area is to left out for the different models. How then does the analyst determine which system to use when a new system or new computer is to be acquired? That means what are the various factors by which we can use, or which system to use when a new computer is to be acquired. Now, the starting point is an equipment decision, that is process is the size and the capacity requirement. That is, what is the main size for the equipment? What is that is the starting point? That is the equipment decision process is the size and the capacity requirement. What is the main size of the system? What is the capacity of the system? And one particular computer system is appropriate, or we can say that the computer system is appropriate for one work and inappropriate for the another. It depends that is this system is only used for the development of the system, not used for the testing of the system, testing of the software. But it's also okay. So one system may be appropriate for one workload and inappropriate for the another. And system capacity is frequently the determining factor. That means we have to determine the factor, that is the system capacity, and relevant features are also to be considered includes the following. That means what are the various relevant feature that is considered, that includes the following. First one is internal memory size. So we have to focus, or we have to focus on these features. What are the various characteristics that is used to consider that is determine the size and the capacity requirements. First one is internal memory size. That means what is the internal memory size of the computer? It is either 4 GB, 2 GB. What is the internal memory size? Then cycle speed of the system for the processing. How the CPU will execute, whether it will follow the cache memory, it will focus on the main memory. What is the life cycle or the cycle speed of the system for the processing? Then characteristics of the display and the communication component. That is, what are the various display methods and what are the various communication component that is taken care of. That means how we can communicate. What are the various factors? What are the various ways by which one person communicate with another, that is the sender and the receiver communicate with each other. What are the various communication components? What are the characteristics of the display? Then next one is types and number of auxiliary storage units that can be attached. That means what are the various external memory storage, external devices that is used for storing the material, storing the data. That is, what are the types? That may be in the pen drive form, that may be in the CD, DVD, whatever. That is, what are the types and the number of auxiliary storage units that can be attached. Then system supports and utility software provided or available. So what are the various system support features? What are the various utility support features that is provided or available within the organization? Then frequently software needs that dictate that the minimum configuration required. So all these 5 features are required for the all these are the relevant features that is included within the system capacity and the requirements. First one is internal memory size, then cycle speed of the system for processing, then characteristics of the display and the communication components, type and the number of the auxiliary storage units that can be attached, system support and the utility software that is provided or available. And frequently software needs the minimum configuration that is required. For example, when we talk about the particular program to run on a microcomputer, say 4 megabytes of storage, the list of the feasible candidates will exclude each and every system regardless of their, we can say regardless of their material, regardless of their hardware or the software selection, that do not have or that can not be easily configured to have a memory of at least 4 megabytes. So this is one of the example that is given. If the particular program is to run on a microcomputer, for example, it requires at least 4 MB of the storage. But we are using the computer that does not have a sufficient configuration, that is for 4 MB of the data. So that program will not execute because the minimum requirement is a 4 MBs. So all each and every system have some limits depending on what they are designed for. The limits may or may not be a factor in a particular selection decision. So that may or may not be a factor. It is the highest factor that is considered. It is a not a major factor that is considered in selecting the data or selecting the procedures for which we can follow this. For example, some systems communicate data only in a synchronous fashion. If the system has other attractive features and will not be used for the data communications or teleprocessing, the synchronous feature may of the little concerns. Synchronous feature not of the main concern, that is a very little concern. However, if the primary application for the computer requires synchronous transmission of SCI data, but what if the primary application requires a SCI data? Now, what is the full form of SCI? Tell me the full form of SCI, everyone. At least this answer is very quick. What is the full form of sky? Yeah, correct. That is American Standard. Yeah, yeah, same. The American Standard Code for the Information Interchange. Likewise, when we talk about the fact that the particular mini computer is limited to the 5 ports for connecting the terminals, and the printer may be too restrictive in a teleprocessing system. So this is one of the limitations of the mini computers, that is limited to the 5 ports for connecting the terminals, and the printers that may be too restrictive in teleprocessing system that is designed to link 23 sites together through terminals and the communication lines. Software needs often dictate hardware requirements such as internal memory sizes, communication ports, disk capacity, and the ability to use magnetic tape. So software also needs often dictate hardware requirements. What are the various hardware requirements such as the internal memory sizes, communication ports, disk capacity, and the ability to use a magnetic tape. Vendors are the reliable sources of configuration requirements. So when we talk about the vendor, they are the reliable source of the configuration requirements. They can provide the information on the minimum configuration. That is, what is the minimum configuration that is required to use the software properly. Trade newspapers and the magazines also provide regular distribution of the information about the hardware and the software requirements. And in addition to this, subscription services offer information on operating specifications. And these services, which cost several $100 yearly, provides monthly update, and a telephone assistance for the computer operation is also used for the user comments. And the external storage, that is also known as auxiliary storage capacity, is determined by the file storage and the processing needs. What are the various file storage methods that is required for, or what are the various external storage devices that is determined by the file storage and the processing needs. And to estimate the disk storage that is needed for a system, the analyst must consider the space needed for each master file. That means what are the various space required for each master file, space for the program, software, that includes the system software also, that is operating system, and the method by which the backup is we will made, or we will acquire the backup. So to estimate the disk storage, the analyst must consider the space required, the space for the programs, that includes the system software, and the method by which the backup copies will be made. And when using the flexible diskette on our small business system, the analyst must determine whether the master and the transaction file will be maintained on the same disk on which the disk program will be stored. Backup consideration, as well as the file size, that guides the decision about how many disk drive are needed. And the configuration should keep scope for backing or backup copies of all the disks. That means we have to set the backup for each consideration, for each requirement, because backup is very much required for the system, because if the system crashes, so we have to take the backup from the external devices, from the external sources. So we have to recover, or we are going to recover the data from backup and do the processing. Yes. There are same backup devices, the recovery devices that we have discussed already in other modules. Nothing else. Same. When we talk about the backup in any terms, that means taking the backup and providing the data whenever there's a need for the data, or for there's a requirement of the data. In the same way, recovery is also the same. So to estimate the disk storage needed for a system, the analyst must consider the space needed for each master file, the space for the program and the software, including the system software, and the method by which the backup copies will be made. And next one is the computer evaluation and the measurement. That is how we can evaluate and measure the things. So comparisons are often made among different computer systems. We are comparing the different computer system based on the actual performance data. So based on the basis of the actual performance data, we are comparing the different operating system, different computer system. So comparisons are often made among different computer system on the basis of the actual performance data, and using the benchmark data generated by using synthetic programs is the most effective than simply comparing the technical specifications. So we have to use the benchmarking methods for comparing the different systems, for comparing the different computer system using the synthetic program. That is most effective method as compared to the normal technical specifications.